going on, you guys? It is another episode of the Sci-Fly Zone where the multiverse meets the seventh inning stretch. It's your boys Tread and CJ, and today's destination is the DCU. We're going to be breaking down the first official episode of Lanterns. I am so excited. I've been waiting for this Green Lantern show for a while. I honestly loved it. But before we get into it, please hit that like button as it greatly helps the channel. And don't forget to check out our shorts content as it has our videos, best and funniest moments. But let's get into this shocking first episode. Before we get into spoilers, I just want to say thank you, DC, for making these episodes an hour long to compensate for the 8-episode season. There was so much awesome stuff in this episode, and you really got to have some personal time with the characters along with them being involved in some high-stakes scenarios. So I'm just really enjoying the pacing of these episodes so far. It's awesome.
Yeah, I was very excited to see the length of that first episode, and I hope it continues to be that throughout the season because it just feels like with this episode in particular, they're able to take their time but also have a consistent pacing throughout the episode as a whole. I loved all the backstory we got with John. I love the relationship between John and Hal. It's very, very strange, and they're very different from one another. Plus, we'll get to it, but a very, very shocking ending to the first episode of the show. Just a lot going on here, man.
Yeah, 100%. I love the dynamic between John and Hal. Like, they play off each other so well, and not just like a comedic way, but they definitely have different ways of going about this, and it's really cool to see how they each would want to go about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also have the additional dynamic of John growing up watching Hal on TV and like being a fan of him and wanting to be like him. And then as we see when he does get to meet him and interact with him, it's not exactly how he would expect it to go. But yeah, just a lot of great character stuff between the two of them while giving us a really interesting story that's going to play out throughout the season.
100%. So let's get into it. The episode opens with John and his brothers watching a 1996 TV interview with Hal Jordan, which reveals that Hal has been protecting Earth since 1986. And we see from a young age how much Jon Stewart sees himself in Hal Jordan and wants to walk in his footsteps one day, not only in the same way as his father, who is serving in the Marines, but in the same way Hal walked in his father's shoes as an Air Force test pilot. A lot of shoes are being walked in here. And apparently, John's father also sees something in John as well, as he asks him the same question Hal Jordan was asked when he received the ring. Are you afraid? Which is a major theme of this entire show and just being a Green Lantern. And it's a really cool aspect to just really start us off and really set the tone.
Yeah, I totally agree. The whole aspect of fear and the lack of fear as a Green Lantern is very important to these characters, and it's going to be important for them throughout the season. And we see the reason that Hal doesn't have fear and was able to become a Green Lantern is very much due to losing his father at a young age, because his father was a test pilot who died in a plane crash. And then after that moment, Hal kind of felt like he didn't really have anything else to lose at that point. So that's where the lack of fear comes from for him. And with John, it seems like he's kind of been raised to have no fear by his father, who is also a veteran as well and an active service member, teaching him like not to have fear by shooting an apple off of his head. I love the visual of seeing all the bullet shots. All the bullet holes in the wall that John is standing in front of. It's basically like they're keeping track of his height while he's growing up, except shooting a bullet at him instead of writing chalk on above his head.
Yeah, it's definitely a different way to go about it, but it definitely builds the kind of character that we need Jon Stewart to be for the things coming in the future.
Totally, yeah. It gives you a lot of insight on who John is as a person, even at a young age, and it also gives you some insight on John Sr. as well.
Yeah. 100%. And one thing to remember as we watch the show in the coming weeks is this line from Hal. Every kid's worst fear is losing a parent. And we see John's dad is still alive in the 2016 timestamp, but no confirmation yet if that's the case in the present in 2026. And this is important because Hal says once that happens, there is nothing to fear anymore, which makes it sound like losing a parent is the required step to take in becoming a true hero, because you can't let fear control you when you are a superhero. So I pray for John's father's safety.
Yeah, I do too, man. I really hope this isn't one of those like Spider-Man situations where you have to go through these tragic things in order to reach your peak potential. But I mean, it kind of feels like they're building up something there, you know, and it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic shifts throughout the show.
Yeah. Definitely. And it's really interesting. I feel like we haven't seen this much in superhero media where we see someone wanting to become a superhero in the footsteps of their favorite superhero, and then they actually do that super early on in the show, and most of the show is training and going on a mission together. Like, that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, it is really nice. I like how they're giving it to us like right up front. They're not making us wait. They're not taking too much time to build up to it. They're showing it to us and then they're developing it throughout the show as it goes on.
Yeah, it's great. So now we catch up in the present with John training at a gym in Coast City, California, which is also a prominent location for where Hal Jordan does most of his Green Lantern work in the comics. So it's cool to see that utilized here, as John is likely living here while training with Hal until the plot pulls them to Nebraska where the inciting incident occurs.
Yeah, 20 years later at this point, so he's about 32, living on his own, training with Hal, like you mentioned, spending a lot more time with him, and it's not as all these sunshine and butterflies as he thought it would be hanging out with Hal, because Hal is not exactly the type of person that he expected him to be. So he's gonna have to, there's gonna be some growing pains between the two of them. They're gonna have to get to like each other.
Yeah. And when Hal picks up John, I mean, what a way to establish a dynamic between two characters. Like, Hal's late and has been gone for the last 2 weeks so far of their 2 months in training together, but he wants John to care that he's late, to prove that John cares about things like that, because that's the kind of guy that you need to be. But John, he's not trying to be rude. He wants to respect the chain of command. That's his personality. Like, it's just fantastic writing, and Hal just keeps picking at him like, come on, like, aren't you gotta be a little mad?
Yeah, just a really great, quick way to show the difference between the two of them. And, he is still the one being trained right now. So it's not like he has much pull over Hal in this situation. He kind of has to just go with the flow with whatever Hal decides is going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. So next we see the full play out of the Hal jumps out of the car and forces John to use the ring for the very first time to save himself from being crushed to death scene. And I can see why the Guardians of the Universe chose him, because he not only figured it out pretty well and saved himself in a pretty smart way using the bubble wrap to save himself, but dude, Hal Jordan, he's hilarious. Like, hey, I'll meet you down at the taco stand 3 miles away. Good luck.
Yeah, it was such a great scene. We saw it a little bit in the trailer, but even seeing it in the show still was so fun. I love the use of the bubble wrap to protect himself. It's such an interesting, silly way to use the ring. And we'll see a couple other interesting ways that they use the ring throughout the episode. But yeah, this was a great scene. Tough for John in his situation. They say never meet your heroes because they might ditch you in a car driving off a cliff. So that's what happened with John here. But he made it out okay. He's all right. He passed the test.
Yeah, he had a hell of a time.
I beg your pardon?
Yeah, he did. Yep.
And I think it's really interesting that John calls his father immediately after the crash to vent and also just get some guidance. And his dad actually helps him lock in and keeps things in check. And I do hope that we get to see more of his father being involved in the plot in a emotional capacity like this.
Yeah, I do too. I like the bit of the relationship that we've gotten with the two of them so far. It hasn't been like a ton of screen time with them, but we've gotten as much as we've needed within the first episode. But I do hope it's a consistency throughout the show. It's cool to see that he still has that strong relationship with his dad despite all the Apple shooting and the way that he grew up.
Yeah, 100%. Because, I mean, his dad does respect him, so at least there is that.
Yeah, absolutely. He wants him to be successful, and like with his dad having the military experience, it's kind of a similar situation that John is going through, except more like a space military thing in a way. So, there are some parallels between that. So his dad does have the capacity to give him some solid, relevant advice.
Yeah, 100%. So John's walking back to meet Hal at the taco stand, and we see Hal Jordan's ring do a conscious call, basically sending out a hologram, as John dubbed it, to relay a message to him as Hal's mind is connected to the ring. And this version of Hal is 10 years in the past, basically. He's much more Boy Scout-like, and in a good way. And it was hilarious when this version of Hal realized how little training John's gotten so far.
Yeah, he asked him to fly him. John has not been taught how to fly yet. He has not gotten that far.
Bruh.
Just now using the ring for the first time. So, it was confusing at first. It took me a minute to figure out what was going on until he actually explained that it was part of his consciousness mixed with the ring. But Kyle Chandler did such a good job acting with this, in this aspect of the character. He seems so different from the Hal that we know right now in current 2016. And it makes me wonder what's happened within these last 10 years that has made Hal jaded this way, or if there's anything in particular, or if he's just over it at this point. But yeah, I mean, that 10-year younger Hal seemed a lot more spry and energetic than our current Hal.
Yeah, definitely. And definitely higher expectations.
Yes, absolutely.
So after Conscious Hal sends a message to John saying, hey, tell myself this when you meet myself. John, when he catches up with Hal, who's taking selfies and eating tacos right now, he tells the message that the ring gave him, that being, there's hail in Rushville, Nebraska. And this reaction that Hal gives is the equivalent of hearing, sir, your wife is in labor.
I gotta go.
To the bathroom?
Get out of here.
And there he goes. Take the ball. He's out. I got it.
As he dips out and flies at least 1,200 miles all the way to Nebraska, leaving John to take the plane and get a rental car, which kind of felt like when Wonder Man was taking the freeway home in the first episode. You know, just relatable stuff that our superheroes go through when they can't access their powers the same way others can.
Yeah, it's so great. I mean, the fact that Hal hasn't taught John how to fly yet, but just ditches him at the restaurant, makes him get a plane ticket and that rental car. It did remind me a little bit of Wonder Man as well. It reminded me of the episode 5 when they're trying to chase down Jaden because he just recorded them, and Trevor's like, are you going to use your super speed? And so he's like, no, I'm going to use my car, Trevor. I'm going to use my car. And then it immediately cuts to them in standstill traffic, just not moving. I mean, yeah, just really, really great parallels there. I could talk about Wonder Man all day, but yeah, I like this aspect of this scene as well.
Yeah, 100%. So John, he finally catches up to Hal, and he pulls up on a mass casualty event that Hal has been trying to piece together as to who did it, why they did it, and how it happened. And we also get introduced to Sheriff Carrie Kane. And the actress who plays her is honestly doing a great job with her character, because, I mean, if you're a sheriff in a town with less than 1,000 people and there's a mass casualty event, that's definitely going to be a hard thing to handle with how limited the resources are. And all of a sudden, a Green Lantern shows up. You know, I can see how at first glance, like, she would definitely react this way. But thankfully, over the course of the episode, like, Hal proves that he's certain he needs to be here to offer his help, and she sees that.
Yeah, I like the dynamic between the two of them. They're kind of clashing because they both want to solve this, but they don't really want to participate or cooperate with each other. And it makes sense. She's the one that's supposed to be in charge of this and figuring this out. So for some Green Lantern to stroll in and go, no, I'll take care of this myself. Let me do all of the work. I could see why that would be like an insult to her. But I could also see why Hal thinks that he's needed, because he kind of is, because it's very necessary to have a Green Lantern in this situation. And we're going to learn more why that is throughout the season. But yeah, I like how Hal is very persistent and very confident in himself and is able to prove that throughout the episode.
Yeah, 100%. So Hal, he's seen this all before. He's like,
these victims are going to end up being aliens.
Based on what?
I have a feeling.
He has a feeling.
I have a very strong feeling. Say it with me now. Aliens.
aliens, aliens, aliens. All of the victims, aliens, and the shooters, likely aliens as well. But even after pointing out some of his key details that he's found, of course Carrie and even John to a degree think he sounds like Mulder from X-Files with all of this alien talk. But Hal, obviously, he likes to play things close to the chest, so he's not going to reveal anything until he can literally show it to you. But, you know, one thing that they can agree on, if there is an alien here, it's Short Sleeves over there. So after a misplayed conversation with the sheriff, John has to chase after Short Sleeves, and he actually shows off his speed and his endurance here, and manages to outrun him and clock him in the nose. Like, this was a really fun sequence.
Yeah, this was a really fun chase scene. John trying to chase down Short Sleeves and Kane trying to chase down John. Like, really cool seeing the athleticism and, like you said, the endurance that John has, because this guy is in great shape, and I'm sure we're going to get a lot of really great physicality with him in this show. But I love how he, like, took this into his own hands, maneuvers his way throughout the tunnel system to, like, get in front of Short Sleeves, the guy that's running away, and just clocks him in the nose. I love that moment. It was like the first glimpse of what John is really able to do, even without the ring, just as a normal dude, what he's capable of.
Yeah, 100%. That's only going to make me like the guy more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how immediately confident that Hal is that this is aliens, and that, yes, Earth is being invaded by aliens, and they're going to Rushville, Nebraska, of all places. This does sound like a pretty insane theory, so it makes sense that nobody else is on board with him. But, you know, he wants to figure this out, and he's going to figure out how to interview this person one way or another.
Yeah, 100%. And after they arrest the alleged visitor from outer space, Hal and John go to a local bar where Hal conjures up a 20 for the jukebox. I love seeing little small scale usages of powers like this.
Yeah, me too. I always like the little creative things that they get to do because if they have the ring, he's probably practicing in his free time, coming up with different shenanigans.
Yeah, definitely. And Hal using the ring to conjure up the 20 brings up the tale of how got the ring in the first place. And Hal's story hits most of the beats that the comic origins typically do. Seeing Abin Sur, hearing the speech at the death of the previous Lantern onto the next previous Lantern, only changing the fact that he lands in Nebraska, which is actually only 20 miles away from the bar where this conversation is happening, proving that Nebraska means a lot to Hal Jordan in this universe. And, it just makes me wonder if opposing forces will use this knowledge against him at some point.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think there's probably a good chance that happens. I do like that they're doing very comic accurate background for Hal getting the ring. I like how they're like staying true to the comics while also making this its own like grounded, at least for now, grounded show based in like the middle of nowhere, but it's still very accurate to what the writers initially wanted for the character.
Yeah, 100%, dude. And Hal, when he's talking about the ring, he says, a human getting a ring, isn't that a fluke? And that's in the context of how the Guardians of the Universe view Earth relative to the entire universe, which makes me think that this is a setup for Brainiac. Because since 2016, when this happens, Earth will get a Jon Stewart as Green Lantern eventually. They'll get another Green Lantern with the Justice League and Guy Gardner, as well as Superman, as well as Supergirl, and everyone else that's going to be established before Man of Tomorrow. Hal Jordan knows him getting the ring is no accident, and he, along with the Guardians of the Universe, knows something is coming to Earth, and they're placing their defenses.
Yeah, everything does feel very intentional. This does not feel like it's happening by chance at all. It feels like what's happening is supposed to be happening for good or bad, whatever that may be, but something is definitely coming back as well. It is not just Abin Sur coming to Earth. There's going to be more following.
Yeah, 100%. And I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be really great. I mean, they've subtly been building up to Brainiac, I feel like, here and there, but it feels like it's getting more and more likely that we're going to see him pretty soon.
Yeah, definitely. So now while Hal continues playing the same song over and over again to piss off drunk patrons and get in a fight with them so he can get arrested to intentionally place himself next to the alleged alien guy in jail, John happens to be sitting next to Zoe Macon, or rather vice versa. I don't know, something sketchy going on. But the Macons are the Makerbridge family in Rushville and are heavily involved with what's going on with aliens that are suspected throughout town and are seemingly against them entirely as well. But Zoe here, she is not against a one-night car ride with Jon Stewart, and keeping the fact that she's married hidden during their time together as well. I'm sure this won't come back to bite them later.
Nothing better than eating off another man's grill.
No, surely there will be no repercussions for his actions. Very trusting of this person immediately. She, for being a stranger at the bar, she's asking a lot of questions and he's given a lot of answers. He is really not holding back with what's going on.
Yeah, maybe he's trying to just be more open and being like more normal about being a superhero, kind of like how Hal Jordan is.
Yeah, he kind of normalizes it in a way. Like everybody was super excited to see him at that restaurant. So maybe John's kind of trying to follow in his footsteps in that way.
Yeah, but I think she placed herself here on purpose to gain information once she found out Hal Jordan was here.
Yeah, it feels like there's something fishy going on. It isn't like fully revealed in this episode, but I feel like it's going to come back to bite him at some point.
Aliens.
Yeah.
So obviously Sheriff Carey saw right through Hal's plan and locked him in the broom closet instead of a regular jail cell and made him go to his arraignment as well.
Kindly state for the record which agency you represent.
I'm Green Lantern.
I didn't ask who you were. I asked which bureau you are an agent of.
I'm Green Lantern, and I'm an agent of Green Lantern. So, look at the iron.
They don't recognize the Green Lanterns as a legal organization that has any jurisdiction or authority over this matter and is prepared to prosecute him. But another Macon walks in, Billy Lawyer Macon. Kind of wish it was Daredevil. I know it's different universe, but just like anytime there's a lawyer scene, I'm just like, put Daredevil in it.
Give the lawyer glasses and make him blind. At the very least, just do that for me.
Yeah, literally. But Billy here, he is the husband of Sheriff Carey, and he helps Hal Jordan get bailed out under the conditions that he has dinner with Father Macon and have some business discussions. Money is power, dude.
Yeah, it really is. It's smart of Hal to be suspicious of this stranger walking into the courtroom and giving him a couple $100,000 to bail him out. He should be cautious about that.
Yeah, 100%. So they pull up to the Macon Ranch, and they have their own private
Militia. Walks like a duck, shoots an AR-15 like a duck, blah, 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 duck.
And I think we're definitely going to see this militia later in the season. I know we saw some more action stuff in the trailer, but there's no way some stuff doesn't go down here, especially with what we see at the end of the episode.
Yeah, it feels like they're definitely setting this up for a purpose. It feels like they added this in for a reason. I mean, this is a huge property with a ton of people on it, and everybody has a gun. So they're clearly training for something. So I have a very strong feeling that we're going to see them in action.
Yeah, definitely. So when they park, Hal gets his bag of beer out and offers Carrie a beer and uses the ring to do a party trick for her to impress her and open the beer. You know, I love Hal Jordan. Like, even, like, this is a married woman, by the way. Even the way he says no when Carrie says, hey, you can leave now before it's too late. It's so funny.
No.
Yeah, they have such an interesting dynamic between the two of them, but I really like their relationship, and I hope we see more of it in the future. You know, like Hal said, she hates my guts, but it's the way she hates him.
Yeah, it's like he can't stay away from her, even though he knows that, like, she hates him.
Yeah, but he loves it that she hates him.
I love the way you hold me back. So John and Hal, they meet Will Macon, and I gotta say, the writing in this scene between John, Hal, and Will Macon was off the charts, starting off with the nice gestures and the consideration, and then just seeing who knows more about who, and then Will saying, you know, you guys walking in blind to my house with no information on me is either trust or arrogance. And Hal's like, well, hey, John's trust, I'm arrogance. And then John's like, I don't trust anybody. Like, everybody killed it here.
Yeah, these three were cooking in this scene. They were doing so well, and not just because he was making a barbecue, but they were acting as well. William Macon has a lot of information on John and Hal, and yeah, like you mentioned, it's risky for them to go in blindly to this establishment, especially considering the facilities that they have and the forces that they are working with here, but kind of don't really have a choice because it's either this or jail. And, you know, I think Hal would rather prefer this.
Yeah, no, I entirely agree. But in this scene, Will not only reveals that he and his family are actually caretakers for the property for someone that's actually made them sign an NDA, but that they're actually privy to the entire alien situation, and they want Hal to help keep them out of Rushville and keep them safe because they are afraid of, as they quote, being colonized, which that's interesting.
Yeah, very particular language that they're using, but it definitely had the effect that was necessary.
Yeah, definitely. I think they're worried about some secret Red Lanterns. And Hal says, well, you know, I can help you if you let me talk to the alleged one that you have held up in jail that Carrie's keeping me from. And we'll make it. He says, done. You can talk to him tomorrow morning. Like, these are, again, just powerful people.
Yeah, they are able to move the needle very easily without much effort at all. They can just snap their fingers and make a decision and something happens. And Hal getting in that bar fight in the first place was so that he could interrogate this so-called alien. That never had to happen. He could have just gone up to Will Macon and be like, hey, let me talk to him. And he'd say yes.
Yeah, and before they have dinner, there's actually a great scene between Jon Stewart and Noah Macon, who's played by Carrie Christopher, who's also in Weapons and Spider Noir that came out recently. And John teaches him how to throw a football properly. And we actually see this paid off at the end of the episode as it picks up 10 years later. Noah, he's now a high school all-state quarterback. Pretty cool storytelling.
Yeah, I really liked that. It was just a little short story, just a one episode thing. You introduce it in the middle of the episode and then it pays off at the end of the episode. And it's not like super impactful to the story or anything. It just shows John is really good at giving advice. You know, he says to him, don't try to aim, just throw it, just imagine it, which is kind of what they have to do with the ring as well. And, you know, I think it just shows that whenever John does take the place of Hal, he's going to be a great teacher as well for whoever comes after him.
Yeah, very well said. Also, hi, Zoe Macon. Was not expecting to see you here. Like, for Will Macon later to say,
Nothing better than eating off another man's grill.
very impressive restraint for a dude who just banged your wife the previous night. Like, we haven't even been here 24 hours, John.
Yeah, that was an interesting little wink from Macon there. They're like, yeah, I know what happened. I know what you did. Not really making like a huge scene about it or anything, just letting him know that he knows what's going on. And it feels like everybody kind of knows what's going on except for John and Hal, honestly, at some points in this episode.
Yeah, it's just like the X-Men, everyone's banging.
Yep, that's exactly right. Everybody in this town knows each other very well.
Yep, literally. So we finally get to the police station. And it was hilarious how initially Carrie was so certain that this guy was not an alien. He's just a guy from a random town in Nebraska. Just for Hal and John to hit her with the fact that there are already 14 currently known species that can pass every standard test to come off as a human. So we gotta go the old-fashioned way. What do you like about football? Where does Harry Potter go to school? How do you feel about Barack Obama? And the giveaway that this guy was an alien was that he was not racist enough to be from the middle of Nebraska, which is hilarious.
Yeah, I love that. That was the moment that Hal knew he was lying. Like, you are in rural Nebraska in 2016. Tell me what you think about Barack Hussein Obama. Huh? What are your thoughts on him? Oh, he's the president? That's all you gotta say? Suspicious.
Yeah, again, just amazing writing by the show. So eventually the alien just starts giving away the details. And dude, this scene, it was captivating. I think this guy is secretly a Red Lantern. He wants war, he wants vengeance, and he has a great understanding of what needs to play out in order for that to happen. And he knows that Hal Jordan's ring needs to be charged by the lantern in order for it to work at full power. That feels like something only a lantern would know. And he even has a biometric neutron device that can kill him instantly if he were to be at risk. But when he starts repeating the Green Lantern oath back to Hal, it pisses him off. And he throws the alleged Red Lantern onto the glass, and then his bomb gets activated. And Hal has to use his ring to control the explosion enough to not only save himself, but everyone else in town with no casualties. And he pulls it off. It was aliens, and he knew it the whole time.
He was actually right. Yep, everybody was wrong to laugh at him for it. Yep, it was aliens. It's always been aliens. Yeah, that was a really, really cool escalation to this scene where he starts reciting the Green Lantern's oath back to Hal, showing how much he really does know about the Green Lanterns, talking about what he would be doing here hypothetically if he was a Red Lantern or an alien. Just really well acted by the man playing that character. You know, I love that moment where Hal pops up from behind the wall and goes, "Told you it was an alien." That was, you know, he got his "I told you so" moment. That was great.
Yeah, it was just a great moment. And then we cut to 2026, 10 years in the future. And we see John, he's rocking the classic goatee, and he passes by the now destroyed Macon Ranch, hinting at some destruction there down the line. But when John arrives, Carrie shows him the shocking news. Hal Jordan has been murdered, and his ring is gone. And now we need to find out who did it and why. You know, before watching this episode, I thought to myself, I hope they don't golden boy Hal Jordan. And then they golden boyed Hal Jordan, in the sense that he was set up to be a primary character in the show, killed off in the first episode, but remained a prominent presence and influence on the plot despite his death. And I think that's definitely what's going to be happening with Hal. I know this isn't going to be the last that we see of him, but wow. This has been shocking.
Nobody really expected that to happen at all. Really, really interesting decision to make. And just in this first episode alone, they've shown us that this episode takes place in 3 different decades, 1996, 2016, and 2026. So I imagine they're going to be doing that more throughout the season. I don't think this is going to be the only time we see that. Also, Hal Jordan is in a lot more of the trailer than the scenes that we've seen him in. So we still have a lot more Hal to see. We still have to see him talk to Sinestro. We still have to see him use that shield bubble with the ring over the village, protecting them. So we're still going to have a lot more Hal. I just don't know how exactly they're going to go.
Yeah, I'm very, very interested to see how they're going to go about it, but I know a lot is definitely on its way, and I'm really excited to see it. And I like the idea of Jon Stewart investigating Hal Jordan's murder as an overarching plot of the whole season, while using what's happening in 2016 as context and evidence for the investigation going on in 2026. So when we see the past in 2016, it's more evidence to figure out what's going on in the present, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's like we're going to be actively getting updates on the context of what's going on and what's happened in the past and how it's affecting what's going on right now, which is going to be a really, really interesting experience. I don't think I see that a lot in like television where they're actively jumping between decades.
Yeah, X-Men 97.
Yeah, I mean, actively jumping between millennia.
Yeah. So, if there are indeed sleeper Red Lanterns riddled throughout Rushville, Nebraska, and if they are keeping the same Red Lantern's origin as in the comics, where their sector was destroyed, perhaps these Red Lanterns are baiting Hal into coming back into Nebraska because they know he has an emotional attachment to the area because he landed there and got his ring there. So, when he's there, they can force him to either work for them or just get straight vengeance on him, i.e. the Green Lanterns, for not doing anything to prevent the massacre of their sector by the Manhunters, who are confirmed to appear later in the season. But why do the Red Lanterns show up now as opposed to in the past, since Hal has been a Lantern for decades now, you may ask? Hal has described Earth's location in the galaxy in the same manner as Outer Rim planets in the Star Wars universe are described. Nothing powerful or important is here, as of when the conversation was taking place in 2016. So, knowing this, on top of Abin Sur's mysterious circumstances surrounding his death and the passing of the ring in the middle of Nebraska, it probably took the Red Lanterns a really long time to find Hal. And as I theorized before, they're probably using his attachment to Nebraska to trap him. And I think something that happens in Nebraska is going to be the thing that kills Hal, obviously, since his body's there. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty solid theory about where they're going to go. I think there's a really good chance that's what happens. Feels like Hal is getting set up in some way. Like we mentioned earlier, I don't trust anybody in this town. Everybody is suspicious, and it feels like everybody has their eye on Hal and John. And I think that's probably going to be the way that Hal gets into the position that he's in now.
Yeah, I totally see that. I also have one entirely different theory. So here's the theory. Imagine John's father was the one who shot Hal Jordan. In the beginning of the episode, his father said, they can throw tantrums, we can't, and just stay the course, and this job is yours. What if over these 10 years, heading into 2026, since John does not get the ring from Hal at all during this time, and since Hal said John would get it over his dead body, John's frustration with Hal Jordan not giving up the ring causes him to kill him in an attempt to finally have his son get the ring that he rightfully deserves, just for it to go to someone or somewhere else. Since when we see Hal's dead body, neither of them have the ring. It's outlandish, but it's not impossible, but the ring would know that it should not go to John under these circumstances.
Wow, yeah, that is a really, really interesting theory. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like, if John Sr. did kill Hal, why would the ring decide to go to John Jr.? Like, under those circumstances, it wouldn't make sense. And they did sort of set up some breadcrumbs that that's a possibility, with John Sr. asking for Hal's name after he comes home when John Jr. is watching television. You have that conversation like you mentioned. And how does Hal Jordan die? To a bullet wound to the head. John Sr. has a very good aim, as we saw in the beginning of this episode, and he is very handy with weapons. So it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, and plus, his dad's got to be a little resentful to Hal Jordan because his son looked up to Hal more than him sometimes. And he's got to probably have some bitter feelings about that too. So the fact that the guy that he looked up to so much is not giving him what he deserves would probably stir up some frustration.
Yeah, we see that like John wants to grow up and be like Hal instead of being like his dad, which could cause some resentment or some hateful feelings there. Yeah, man. Wow. If that is the way they go with it, that's going to be really, really interesting. And, they've made some ballsy moves already in this episode. So, like I said, it's not totally out of the realm of possibility. That would be really, really interesting.
Yeah. Either that or Peacemaker.
yeah.
If it's Peacemaker, bro, I'm going to lose.
I mean, so he's just back. He's not there anymore. He made it out.
Yeah, it's probably not Peacemaker. But yeah, crazy episode 1. I loved it though. I think if they play their cards right, this will pan out to be a fantastic first episode more than it already is.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have confidence in the writers that they're going to make it work out. I mean, like you said, it's a great first episode, and it's going to be hard to ruin the feeling that you have about this episode because of how good it was. And I can't wait to see where they build off of this from.
Yeah, same. So if you guys made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and we really appreciate it. And we hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace.